Hey, welcome to Trailer Trash True Crime Podcast. We are your hosts, Braden.
Kylie.
And Frederick.
We're going to be going over the book Cults by Max Cutler. This really just covers a bunch of cult-related stuff, such as Charles Manson, all the things he got into in his youth and in the cults, and then a couple other famous cults. It mostly, at first, just covers Manson and his childhood and how he was raised. First of all, he had a very unstable and unhealthy childhood. His mother gave birth to him when she was 16. He was very much unwanted, and she made it very clear that that was the case. Motherhood was not her priority. She was a heavy drinker, and she did not parent him. She was constantly drunk, forcing Manson to basically fend for himself right off the bat.
She was also known to go to multiple clubs back in her day, especially around the time Manson was first born. It was known for either leaving Manson at home or with family members, or also known to bring Manson to said clubs or bars and just leave him in that situation while she did whatever she wanted.
Recalling one situation that happened when Manson was a child. How old was he? He was about...
Hold on, which situation?
He was a couple months. He was before a toddler.
Yeah,
And
still very young, probably a baby.
his mother had took him to a bar with her, and, one of the waitresses recalled always wanting a baby and feeling very maternal. And Manson's mother, stated that she didn't really want him at all. So she traded him in for a pitcher of beer to the bartender,
And then she proceeded to drink said full pitcher of beer and leave, which thus resulted in the authorities being called, and I don't quite remember off the top of my head what exactly happened, but I believe she was arrested. I'd have to check.
His uncle had to go and find him by, hunting down the bartender from that night, from what I heard in the podcast that we read this from.
It took them a while to find Manson because the bartender did not actually intend, or at least believe, that Manson's mother would actually leave Manson with her. But by the time she, left the baby with the bartender decided that she was going to try this out and maybe actually go through with this. So while Manson was in the care of the bartender, Manson's mother's brother had to search for him, and he wasn't found until a pretty decent amount of time afterwards.
I'm pretty sure it was like a day or two until they found him. Anyway, following up on Manson's mother and her terrible ideas and habits, back in August of 1939, when Manson was only 4 years old, his mother and uncle teamed up to rob a man named Frank Martin. After a night of drinking, the siblings lured Martin to a gas station and then assaulted him, stole his money, and held him during a stick-up with a ketchup bottle pressed to his back, convincing him it was a handgun.
They did a horrible job of disguising their identities, and the police found and arrested him the next day. Charles may have even been watching his mother when she got arrested. This has happened repeated times, and Manson had to face the humiliation and kind of the downfall of his mother And just experiencing that as a child is just traumatic.
Both Charles, his mother, and his mother's brother were constantly arrested throughout the early stages of Charles' childhood. Charles was in and out of correctional facilities, in and out of foster homes, and he was constantly committing crime and just on the street. He committed crimes from things like simple, like stealing, shoplifting, all the way to like grand theft and like assault in his childhood.
Within the period of his mother's arrest, Manson stayed with his mother's sister, Glenna, who had a husband, Bill Thomas, and an 8-year-old daughter, Joanne. They lived close by where Manson's mother was serving her sentence, and that's where he was sent. Small middle-class town of McMechen, West Virginia, where almost everyone worked in the mines or for the railroad. Very low-class, poor area.
Yeah, and a lot of people aren't around in that area to keep an eye and don't really care much to keep an eye on locals because they're too busy working. Running back towards the things Manson saw and the abuse he faced, in the book Cults, it brings up the topic of abuse, crime, neglect, and criminality a lot. A lot of the offenders in this book have a lot of those issues. Some, with the rare instance, don't, but a lot of them share that, and that kind of has their upbringing of either starting cults, following through with crime, or anything along with that.
So a lot of what is spoken about in this first part of the book is just how Charles was treated as a kid, how Charles acted as a kid, all of these horrible things that transpired even before his biggest and worst actions that came later in life. That's all this really covers.
Yeah, all the first chapter really covers is just the really troubling child he had and the rough upbringing.
Most of the behaviors Charles would exhibit due to the rough behavior would be, short bursts of violence, such as when he had an incident with Joanne's parents. He didn't want to do the chores around the house and sat out in the front yard. And when they tried consoling him coming back into the house to do these chores, he found a sickle in the front yard, picked it up, and slashed the screen door. This kind of exhibits some of his extreme violent behavior and some of the things that he would show as early signs of psychopathy as a child.
Now let's talk about Randy Lanier. This guy was a big-time marijuana trafficker back in his day. He was bringing in tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of pounds of weed into the United States from multiple different places, raking in what would now be hundreds of millions of dollars, even coming close to $500 million in weed. This man was doing this for a while, just bringing in weed, trafficking it, all that. And then he decided, hey, I want to be a race car driver now. So he builds a race car driving team with his weed money, just continuously bringing in loads of weed, going and racing and building his race cars and doing all these crazy things. Well, in the entire time, avoiding being caught by the FBI, the DEA, all of these government organizations wanted to find where this weed was coming from. And it was all coming from this one man and his team of like 3 of his friends, bringing in all of these hundreds of thousands of pounds of weed into the United States.
And while racing, he could have left the weed business behind while joining, what was it, Ford?
Yeah.
They wanted to recruit him for their racing team, but he's just like, nah, I'm gonna keep this and I'm gonna keep dealing weed for the love of the game, when he obviously didn't have to.
Well, it was him and his, what was it, 4 or 5 hillbilly buddies just hopping on boats, little pontoon boats, and later getting that big freighter and just driving the thing on top of bales and bales and bales of weed. And I'm pretty sure, didn't he also name the race car team after the task force designed to
He did.
hunt down
He named
Colors.
the race car team after, I think it was like the first boat division that was used to track down drug traffickers. So these boats that were actively hunting for people exactly like him are who he named his race car team after.
And wasn't it like Blue Lightning?
Blue Lightning.
Blue Lightning,
it was
yeah.
Blue Lightning.
Yeah.
And that's like, after all of this, the real downfall started after one of his last shipments of weed when water got into the hull and it oxidized with the marijuana and like
Not oxidized.
not oxidized, but
decomposed
you know what I
into
mean.
methane.
It mixed and created a gas. And one of the welders that was trying to, remove all the marijuana from the hull and the bottom got blown up from the methane gas.
Not 1, 2.
Two welders died from that, and Randy's just like, I wasn't there. I don't know if that actually happened. or
Randy
not.
says he wasn't informed of this.
Not my problem, fam.
Yeah, but so at first he starts off just trafficking drugs. He then creates a race car team and fuels the expensive for the race car team with the drugs. He could have gotten out of this drug business, escaped from this all. He would never have been caught if he just teamed with Ford.
Yeah.
Well,
But he decided not to.
originally he started, he ended up getting robbed when he was selling pot, quit selling pot, then started racing in a cruddy little Porsche, and he wanted to go faster, up and up and up. So he tried using his own money, didn't work, then switched over to drug money. It was doing well. And then he decided, hey, I want to switch leagues. And he switched leagues, started dealing more pot and delivering it. And then he's like, hey, you know what? Let's do the Indy 500.
Oh yeah, he tries to join. He tries to join with what was at that time the most popular if you got into this race, everybody knew your name, and that's not something you want when you're trafficking hundreds of thousands of pounds of marijuana into the United States in the middle of the drug war,
Yeah.
the war against drugs.
Right. And concluding all of this, his buddies snitched him out, gave him his sentence, and once he got out of prison, they were still buddies. He's like, I forgive you for snitching me out for selling all that fucking marijuana. Oops. And, yeah, they were still friends, and Randy Lanier ended up getting a medical marijuana card and still, pursuing the weed career.
And as for what John Douglas would think of this guy, honestly, I think it would be pretty stumped. I don't think John Douglas had really dealt with this type of criminal before. He wasn't actually hurting anybody, physically. Sure, everybody was demonizing weed back then, but in reality, it's not as big of a deal compared to the people who John Douglas had dealt with. Serial killers, the worst of the worst people. Honestly, I think John Douglas would just say, he messed up. He should have just taken the deal. And just gotten out of the business when he could. I think he would say that this guy was pretty disorganized, but also there were parts where he was extremely organized and how he avoided these sightings and all this. But yeah.
All right, and would you like to finish that off, Fred?
Not really. Would you like to move on to our freaking hoorays?
Yeah, let's do our freaking hoorays. Braden, would you like to start?
Sure, Well, we went on a tour of this pretty cool place,
Yeah.
Scott Forge, and I'm getting a free car pretty soon, so that's pretty awesome.
All three of us actually are checking out the student learner position at this company that we toured, and we're pretty excited. Looking like some pretty good benefits for all of us.
Yeah.
Pretty good hurrah for me is the weather's getting warmer, and I feel less like crud the more that I see the sun. You know, I don't like the cold. I don't like cloudy weather. So I'm pretty excited for summer.
I'm probably gonna get started on doing wiring underneath my dash in my truck to see if I can get it running, and then redoing the wiring for my fuel pump. But if that fails, I might end up buying something else. But other than that, yeah. Hurrah!
Freaking hurrah, dude!
Hurrah!
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 All right.